Have you ever imagined what it would be like to win $350 million overnight? I never thought that could happen to me. My name is Cassandra Wellington, I'm 43 years old, and up until 6 months ago, I was just another successful businesswoman in Nashville, Tennessee. I had my own digital marketing consulting company. A beautiful house in the Belmead neighborhood, a BMW in the garage. And a comfortable life that I built with much sweat and dedication over 2 decades, but life has these cruel ironies. Just when I needed it least, when I had already achieved my financial independence and built a solid patrimony, fate decided to gift me with the largest Powerball prize in Tennessee's history. And that's when I discovered that money, no matter how much of a blessing it is, can reveal the worst in people around us. Before starting the story, please subscribe to the channel and comment below. What would you do if you won the lottery? It was a Friday in December, the eve of my 43rd birthday. I was leaving a particularly difficult meeting with a client in downtown Nashville when I stopped at a gas station on Broadway to fill up. It wasn't my habit to buy lottery tickets, in fact, I always thought it was a waste of money. But that day, something made me look at the Powerball machine while paying for gas. The jackpot was at $350 million. The attendant, a friendly gentleman named Earl, greeted me as he always did. "Hi, Ms. Wellington. How about trying your luck today? The prize is big." I laughed at the suggestion. "Earl, you know I don't believe in these things. I prefer to build my wealth with hard work." "Ah, but it's only $5. Think of it as a birthday present for yourself." That's when I remembered, it was the eve of my birthday. My company, Wellington Digital Solutions, had closed the best quarter in history that month. I was celebrating alone, as always. My parents, Harold and Margaret Wellington, lived in Franklin, only 30 minutes away, but our relationship had always been cold and distant. They never approved of my choice to be an entrepreneur instead of following the family tradition of working in real estate. "You know what, Earl? You're right. Today I'm going to play at being lucky." I bought a ticket, chose random numbers 23, 36, 42, 51, 67, and Powerball 15 and put it in my wallet without really looking at it. It was just a game. A momentary whim from a woman who had always been extremely rational and calculating. On Saturday, my birthday, I woke up early as I always do and went for my morning run routine in Centennial Park. Nashville was beautiful that December morning, with a fresh breeze announcing winter. I returned home, had my breakfast alone, a tradition I had already gotten used to, and prepared for another day of work. Even though it was Saturday, around 10 in the morning. My personal assistant, Jennifer Morrison, called me euphoric. "Cassandra, did you see last night's drawing? Someone in Nashville won the Powerball." "Really? How lucky for that person," I replied distractedly, focused on the emails piling up on my screen. "Didn't you buy a ticket yesterday? I remember you mentioning something about it." That's when I remembered. I searched in my wallet and found the crumpled ticket. Jennifer continued talking excitedly about the news while I typed the drawing numbers into the official lottery website. My fingers trembled slightly as I compared each. Number. 23 check. 36. Check. 42. Check. 51. Check. 67. Check. Powerball 15. Check. The world stopped. Literally stopped. I felt as if air had left my lungs and my heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. I hung up the phone without explanations to Jennifer and sat in my leather chair, looking at that piece of paper worth more than $300 million. My first reaction wasn't joy. It was panic. I, who had always controlled every aspect of my life, who built my success with planning and strategy, had just won an astronomical amount of money by pure chance. It seemed too ironic to be real. Spent the rest of Saturday locked at home, researching everything about what to do when you win the lottery. I read about specialized lawyers, financial advisors, tax implications. and especially about maintaining anonymity, something that, unfortunately, I discovered wouldn't be possible in Tennessee on Sunday. I gathered courage and called Richard Blackwood, a lawyer specialized in sudden fortunes that I found in my research. He confirmed my suspicion, it was indeed the winning ticket. On Monday, along with him and an accountant he trusted, I headed to the Tennessee Lottery headquarters in Nashville. The process was surreal. Documents, more documents, photos, interviews. I chose to receive the prize in cash, which resulted in approximately $210 million after taxes. It was more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, the news leaked on Wednesday. Nashville businesswoman wins largest Powerball prize in state history, the newspapers proclaimed. My photo was on all local news websites. From that moment on, my private life ceased to exist. The first to appear were the journalists. Then came the beggars. Next came the friends I hadn't seen in years. But the most painful was my own family's reaction, and my younger sister, Victoria Wellington Hayes, who always had financial problems despite being married to a doctor in Franklin, was the first to call. Not to congratulate me, but to suggest investments that could mutually benefit us. She casually mentioned that she had always dreamed of opening a boutique and that it would be a great opportunity for us to unite as a family. My parents were even more direct. In a tense call, my father Harold said, "Cassandra, now that you have this luck, we hope you remember who raised you. Your mother and I are thinking about retiring, and you know our pension isn't enough for the lifestyle we deserve." It was a lie. I knew they had a comfortable retirement and several properties in Nashville. But greed had set in. The most shocking thing was discovering that my brother-in-law, Dr. Marcus Hayes, had consulted a lawyer to see if there was any legal way to claim part of the prize, alleging that I had used family resources to buy the ticket. Of course it was absurd, but the attempt showed me how far envy and greed can drive people. My employees, who had always been exemplary professionals, started acting strangely. Jennifer, my trusted assistant for 5 years, began arriving late and making basic mistakes. I discovered later, through a colleague, that she was looking for another job and spreading that I had become unbearable after the prize. Marcus Thompson, my minority partner in Wellington Digital Solutions, who held 20% of the company, sought a lawyer to try to force the sale of his part for a value much above market price, alleging that I now had a conflict of interest and that my new financial situation compromised our business. But the hardest blow came from Rachel Montgomery, my best friend for 15 years. We met at Vanderbilt University, built our careers together, shared an apartment for years when we were young. She was like a sister to me. Rachel began avoiding me. When I called, she always had an excuse. When I suggested lunch, she invented commitments. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned she was saying I had changed, that I was arrogant and that easy money destroys people. The truth was exactly the opposite. I continued being the same person, working at the same company, living in the same house. The only difference was that now I had an absurd amount of money in the bank and didn't quite know what to do with it. That's when I met Dr. Patricia Valdez, a psychologist specialized in people who go through sudden financial changes. She explained to me a phenomenon called lottery winner syndrome. It didn't refer to the winners themselves, but to the people around them. "Cassandra," she told me during one of our sessions, "the problem isn't that you've changed. The problem is that the people around you revealed who they really were." Sudden wealth works like an X-ray of human relationships. It exposes people's true nature. These words helped me understand what was happening. I hadn't become a worse person. Actually, I had become more cautious, more selective, more protective of my privacy. Natural reactions for someone who had become a target of so many interests. Decided to make some radical changes in my life. First, I bought a new house in Brentwood, a more exclusive and secure neighborhood. It wasn't ostentation, it was necessity. The house in Belmead had become a pilgrimage point for curious people and beggars. Next, I completely restructured my company. I bought Marcus's part for a fair value and hired new employees through a specialized recruitment company. Jennifer was the first to be fired, not out of revenge, but because trust had been irreversibly broken. The most difficult decision was about my family. After much therapy with Dr. Valdez, I understood I needed to establish clear boundaries. I called my parents and Victoria for a meeting at a neutral restaurant in Green Hills. "I'm going to be very direct," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "The money I won is mine. It wasn't a family effort, it wasn't a collective achievement. It was a ticket I bought with my money, in my car, returning from my work." My father turned red. "Cassandra, what ingratitude is this? We are your family." "That's exactly why I expected a different reaction from you," I replied. "I expected you to be happy for me, not see this as an opportunity to benefit." Victoria tried a more subtle approach. "Cassie, you know I've always admired you. It's not about the money, it's about uniting as a family and creating something together." "Victoria, you haven't spoken to me in the last 3 years. The last time we saw each other was last Christmas, and you spent the entire night complaining about your financial life and criticizing my choices. Now, suddenly, you want to create something together?" The conversation ended badly. My father accused me of having become cold and calculating. My mother cried, saying I was destroying the family. Victoria left, slamming the door, but for the first time in months, I felt free. With the help of a first-class team of financial advisors, I began structuring my new patrimony. I invested in diversified funds, commercial real estate, promising startups, and stocks of solid companies. The money, which initially caused me anxiety, began to become a powerful tool to realize dreams I didn't even know I had. I had always had a secret passion for helping young entrepreneurs. With my financial situation stabilized, I created the Wellington Foundation, a non-profit organization focused on providing mentorship and initial capital for women who want to open their own businesses. The foundation's first project was in partnership with Vanderbilt University. We created an incubator program that offered not just money, but specialized consulting, networking, and monitoring during the first 2 years of the business. It was through the foundation that I met genuine people. Sarah Chen, a 26-year-old young woman who wanted to open a sustainable technology company. David Rodriguez, a war veteran who dreamed of creating a network of food trucks with authentic Mexican food in Nashville. Maria Gonzalez, a single mother who wanted to transform her passion for sewing into a children's fashion business. These people saw me for what I offered, not for what I possessed. They respected me for my experience and knowledge, not for my bank account. For the first time since I won the lottery, I felt useful again. 6 months after the drawing, my life had found a new balance. The Wellington Foundation had already helped 15 new businesses take off, and I was more professionally fulfilled than I had ever been. My consulting company continued growing, now with a renewed and more motivated team. It was on a Tuesday in June that I received an unexpected call. It was Rachel, my former best friend. "Cassie? Is it really you?" Her voice sounded fragile, different from the confident Rachel I knew. "Hi, Rachel. How are you? Can I talk to you? In person?" I agreed to meet her at Pancake Pantry, a restaurant in Hillsborough Village where we used to have breakfast on Sundays during university. When I saw her, I noticed she was thinner and looked tired. "Cassie, I need to apologize to you," she began as soon as she sat down. "I was an idiot. A complete idiot." I waited in silence. "When I found out you had won the lottery, I got jealous. Not of the amount, but of the fact that you always had everything under control. You built a successful company, have a beautiful house, always knew what you wanted. And me? At 41 years old, I'm still trying to figure out what to do with my life." She stopped to take a sip of coffee, her hands trembling slightly. "I started making up that you had changed because it was easier than admitting the problem was me. I spread these lies because I was angry at myself, not at you." I felt a knot in my throat. Rachel had been one of the losses that hurt me most. Last month, I was fired from the advertising agency, she continued. My marriage to Brian is ending. I'm living with my mother at 41 years old. And then I realized I lost not only my job and my marriage, but also my best friend. And it was out of pure stupidity on my part. Rachel. I tried to interrupt. No, let me finish. You didn't change anything, Cassie. You're still the same generous, intelligent, and determined person you always were. The difference is that now you can do much more good for the world. I heard about your foundation, about what you're doing for young entrepreneurs. It's exactly the kind of thing I always admired about you. We spent the next 2 hours talking like in the old days. Rachel told me about her marriage problems, her professional frustrations, her fears about the future. I shared with her the difficulties I faced in recent months, the loneliness, the painful discovery about people's true nature. Do you forgive me? She asked at the end. I forgave you a long time ago, I replied sincerely. But we need to rebuild trust. And that's what we did. Slowly, carefully, we began rebuilding our friendship. Rachel became one of the first employees of the Wellington Foundation. Bringing her experience in marketing and advertising to help our entrepreneurs with their communication strategies, the relationship with my family never fully recovered. My parents and Victoria maintained a cold distance, speaking to me only on obligatory occasions like birthdays or holidays. The conversations were cordial but superficial. I learned to accept this reality at the end of the first year as a lottery winner. I took stock of my life. Financially, I was better than ever. Through intelligent and conservative investments, my patrimony had grown to more than $240 million. The Wellington Foundation had helped 32 new businesses, creating more than 200 direct jobs in Nashville and the region personally. I had lost some important relationships but gained others much more meaningful. My social circle was now smaller but composed of genuine people who valued me for what I was, not for what I possessed. Dr. Valdez helped me understand this was a natural evolution. Cassandra, you went through a filtering process that most people never experience. It was painful but necessary. Now you know the true value of human relationships. One of the most important lessons I learned was that money, by itself, is neither good nor bad. It's a tool. It can build or destroy, unite or separate, dignify or corrupt. Everything depends on how it's used and how people react to it. Chose to use my luck to create opportunities for others. Through the foundation, I could see young talents transforming ideas into realities. Families escaping poverty through their own businesses. Entire communities being benefited by local enterprises. Also learned about human nature. Greed, envy, betrayal, all of this was always there, in the people around me. Money just brought these characteristics to the surface. Similarly, generosity, loyalty, integrity, these qualities also became more evident in those who truly possessed them. Sarah Chen, the young entrepreneur in the technology area, became one of my closest friends. Her company grew exponentially, but she never forgot where she came from. Whenever she gets a new important contract, she calls me to share the joy, not because she needs my money, but because she values my experience and friendship. David Rodriguez expanded his food truck network to 5 vehicles and is planning to open his first restaurant. Maria Gonzalez got a contract with a large department store chain and now employs 15 people in her studio. These stories remind me daily of why it was worth going through everything I went through. Money gave me power, not the power to dominate or manipulate, but the power to transform lives, including my own today. 2 years after that fateful Friday at the gas station on Broadway, I can say I'm a wiser and, paradoxically, more humble person. Wealth taught me about poverty, not financial poverty, but the poverty of character that exists in many people, who learn to value authenticity above all else. I prefer to have 5 true friends than 50 self-interested acquaintances. I prefer to invest in people who dream of changing the world than spending money on futilities that only feed the ego. the Wellington Foundation became my greatest passion. We expanded our operations to other cities in Tennessee and are planning to reach Kentucky and Alabama. It's not just about money, it's about mentorship, networking, financial education, personal development. We created partnerships with local universities, chambers of commerce, business associations. Our incubator program has a success rate of 85%, well above the national average. More important than that, we created a community of entrepreneurs who support each other. The most ironic thing about this entire journey is that the money I won for free made me work more than ever. But now it's work with purpose, with meaning. I'm no longer just building my own wealth, I'm building opportunities for hundreds of other people. Some nights, when I'm alone in my house in Brentwood, I look at that framed lottery ticket on my office wall. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that life can change in an instant. That people can surprise us both positively and negatively. And that our true wealth isn't in what we possess, but in what we do with what we possess. If I could go back in time and choose not to buy that ticket, I would make the same choice. Not for the money itself, but for the lessons I learned. For the lives I could touch, for the clarity I gained about what really matters in life. The lottery money didn't bring me instant happiness, no money does that. But it gave me freedom. Freedom to choose how I want to live, with whom I want to relate, what legacy I want to leave. And that, I realized, is true wealth. If you liked this story, subscribe to the channel, like the video and comment, what would you do if you won the lottery? And from which city and country are you watching?